Hey guys, welcome to The Beat Goes On. I am Larry, and tonight I am sitting down with Saint Madness. Hey guys, welcome, and thank you for welcoming me into your studios.
How's it going?
Welcome. Hey.
So, how about we get some introductions going around the room? We will start with Prophet.
I'm Prophet, and I'm the vocalist and the founder of the band.
I'm Sid Ripster, guitar extraordinaire.
I'm a Sorum rhythm guitarist.
And Evil T, I play drums.
Devin Lucius, bass player.
Well, that is Saint Madness in the hole, guys. So,
all right, thank you.
That is not the interview in the hole. That is just Saint Madness. So, let's start with, we're going to start where we ended the last round. And how about you give us some background on your music history, Devilicious?
Devilicious. I like that.
Did I miss the pronunciation? I'll own that.
No, you actually said it right.
It's
member, buddy.
Dicklicious.
Dicklicious.
Okay, I am not commenting on that one because it'll get me in trouble with somebody somewhere at some point in time, I'm sure of it.
It's got a lot of people in trouble.
Well, my background, I don't know, man.
When did you start playing music?
Well, back a long time ago, my grandfather used to play drums for Glenn Miller. And so I kind of come from a musical background. So I probably decided I wanted to play bass around 14 years old. And so my big brother told me, he says, hey, look, man, if you really want to be a good bass player, he threw some Black Sabbath my way. And so I started learning to play bass off Black Sabbath albums. And then a good friend of mine says, if you really want to be a badass bass player, he says, try playing this. And he set me down to an Iron Maiden album. And so I learned how to play bass off Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden albums.
Some of the best.
Two of the best.
So,
The greatest.
where did you go from there?
Well, I guess I went on, went on and like to learn, got in my first couple of bands like everybody. And then I moved out to L.A. because we were going to become stars. And we were playing so we played Gazzari's and the Whiskey and Rainbow and all the clubs out there and in Bakersfield. There's all kinds of places to play out there back in the day.
What approximate year range of that?
Now you're going to make me sound how old I am.
I said approximate.
No, that was in 1988 through 91.
You were out there, if I remember correctly, around the same time as Horace Miller. Did you run into him out there?
I didn't know Horace Miller. No, we probably could have walked past each other 1,000 times.
You probably still could, right?
Right. No, we were out there at the same time all the hair bands were, and we were up. See, we should have been north in the North Bay because we were actually a more heavier band than most of the hair bands that were in L.A. If we would have been in San Francisco, we probably would have been tight with Metallica, and because we were a more aggressive band than we're looking for. But one day we woke up and there was a bunch of guys wearing combat boots and flannels.
I'm sorry for that.
And yeah, that's when I moved away from LA and actually went to Oregon and Portland and tried to put together a grunge thing. And that went okay, but it really wasn't my thing because my heart, I got a metal heart.
Right.
And so then I went on and actually went and played a couple of country tours for a while. Played country music for a while.
Nice. There's nothing wrong with playing country music.
And then my father passed away, and so I decided to move back here to Arizona. And a couple years later, I decided that I saw this ad in the paper that a band needed a bass player, and my wife told me that, says, hey, man, you're pretty good on bass. You might want to go give those guys give the guys a try. And so I came and tried out, and they asked me if I wanted the gig, and I've pretty much been family ever since.
Nice. So I did forget to ask, how long has Saint Madness been in the music community?
Well, Saint Madness March is actually like our anniversary month, and it's funny because you said you're doing your festival in September. Mm-hmm. We have had our 20th and 25th anniversary concerts in September. So, but our true anniversary is when we started as a band was in March of 1993. So 27 years.
Almost as long as I've been alive. Almost.
And I've been in music, well, when you get to me, but since 1979, say.
So next around the table,
Yeah.
your turn.
Evil T.
Hi.
Evil T.
Sorry, you guys will learn that although I have a really good memory for weird things, names is not one of them that sticks with me. So I might just be doing the point and going, yeah, your turn next. If I can even remember your musical instrument, I might say that. I suck at that, sorry guys. So, Evil T.
That's okay, Joe. No.
What would you like
your,
to know?
your music
I forgot
history.
the name.
Oh, my music history?
Yeah.
Well, I started out playing drums on half a drum set, which was my father's. He was in a band in high school, I guess. That didn't, I guess nothing ever happened. They just played in the basement a lot. But I inherited these drums. Didn't have any cymbals or anything like that. I just had these drums, and I had basketballs I would put around it and just stuff to hit that sounded cool. And I eventually upgraded my drums to an actual drum set. And that was probably, it's got to be mid-'80s, I guess. And I started playing a band seriously about, probably about 1990. And most of it is in Massachusetts, but I moved out here to Arizona in 1997. Started playing in metal bands at all the usual places, Mason Jar, which is closed now. No.
Well, it's reopened. It's just
Oh, I
called
know. It's
something
the Rebel
else now.
Lounge.
You played
I
in
played there.
Ravenwolf. You played in a band called Ravenwolf.
Yeah.
And Ravenwolf actually did shows with us back then.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they were a very good band.
Yeah, and also Joe's Grotto, which, is, as you know, is closed.
I was there for that closing. That was a sad night.
Those are the two main places I used to play a lot, and it was always fun. I've never had a bad show. I might have had some Spinal Tap moments, I guess, here and there, but still fun.
Now, Spinal Tap reference to the movie or Spinal Tap reference to the feel of actually having your spine tapped?
No, the movie.
Because I'm telling you that whole pain level of having that done is a whole nother ballgame. So, how long have you been playing with Saint Madness?
I've been here for, let's see, I guess 2 years.
Yeah.
Time
Time
flies.
flies.
And,
Has it gone quickly, or has there been moments that it feels like a lifetime of, oh my God?
It seems like a short time, but sometimes it can feel like I've been here for longer than I have. Just, I don't know.
Kinda like a
It's
marriage.
just
Sometimes it
your,
feels like
it's
you've
just your
always been
perspective
here.
that day, I guess.
You fit in really
It's
well.
only been 2 years,
and
but it
it's-
feels like forever.
I know.
All right, so let's move on to
Misorum.
Zorb.
Misorum.
Mizoram.
Misorum.
Mizoram. Okay.
I started playing guitar when I was 7. On my brother's guitar, electric guitar they got for Christmas that year. And
You stole your brother's toy. Oh my God.
he's my older brother. It's okay.
Oh, okay. I'm third from the youngest. I get that theory.
So-
I get that logic.
My next door neighbor, a very good friend of mine, Greg Straub, actually he lives here in Arizona now, started teaching me. So he got me hooked into Randy Rhoads, and I fell in love with it and started playing Randy all the time. And took some lessons as a teenager and basically played, just to albums and cassettes and CDs and stuff most of the time up until late 90s. And I formed a band called Chrono in Denver, and it blew up. And my cousin, John Bollock, who's in a band now out there, it's called One Track Mind, he was in a band called Rogue at the time. And they were the biggest band in Denver, so we were selling out the Ogden Theater and Bluebird Theater in Denver. It was great, and that lasted a few years, and then I ended up moving to California and played in a band called X Division up there for a while, and then decided my family was back in Colorado. I needed to move back there. Started playing with a gentleman by the name of Steve Van Persum, who was the original lead guitarist for St. Madness. And I played with him for 2 years or something, and then my job brought me out here. The rest is history.
It seemed like it was kismet.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because he played with our founding guitar player there, and then he came here and joined his old band.
Played
And
with
we
his
felt
founding
sorry
singer.
for him, so we let him in the band.
Yeah. So
That's great. Yeah. Next.
I'm Sid Ribster. I started playing music when I was in 5th grade in school band, like many people did. I played all throughout high school and a year outside of high school. I played like concert band instruments, trombone, tuba, baritone. And then I picked up bass guitar my freshman year. I learned jazz. I played in the jazz band in school, bass guitar. And then I picked up the guitar because a band needed a guitarist, and I wanted to be in a band, and so I learned to play the guitar and joined the band. Had my first real gig my sophomore year, and we were playing stuff like Chicago, 25, 6 till 4, stuff like that, Beatles music, stuff like that. And but rock was really my love, and I guess I wanted to really play guitar when I heard Rick Derringer and Johnny Winters playing in a band called the McCoys. Man, some of their later albums, not the Hang On Sloopy stuff or whatever back in the 50s, but the later stuff that was kind of like their acid albums. Really some good stuff on there. Good guitar work.
But you don't get to dog the rest of it because I still listen to that stuff too.
No.
So.
I get it, but that's not what drew me into playing guitar. It was that later stuff, like the Human Ball Blues album. That was just incredible to me when I first heard it as a kid. I wanted to play guitar. So I learned AC/DC. I learned Alice Cooper, Kiss, all those bands, Oz, Black Sabbath, Paranoid album, those were the first ones that you learned from the front to the back, all the rhythms, with your headphones on, listening to the records, upstairs. I'm dating myself, and then I had a brief stint. I went in the military, then of course found a band in there too. So when I got out, went back to Central Illinois. Started up a band, and that was really my first professional band that I played in. Some of the guys were still in high school, but we were making good money every weekend playing the bars. And I came out here because my military, I loved Arizona, so I came back out to Phoenix, wanted to be in the big city, I was in Tucson, so at Davis-Monthan, so, it's fun, but it's not Phoenix, if you know what I mean. And I've played in the clubs and stuff around here in the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. I met Prophet way back then. We did a little demo tape, 3 songs, I think, way back in the day, and it turned out well, and we always had a strong connection from that point on. And when I found out they needed a guitar player, was it 2013, I believe?
2012.
2012, yeah, the very end of 2012. And I joined the band, I think, just before October.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here
I
I
had just
am.
got back from Holland, and I went there. And I came back the first week in October, and then we hooked up.
And I did a best of album, right? The Carney Medal, and I got to perform a couple songs on that album, and then we did a live album, a live 55. I got to be a part of, and then we did Bloodlustcapades, which was amazing too, and that was a whole experience from the beginning to the end. So, and I'm really proud of that album because I think we worked hard and it really turned out well. And, we've got to do some acoustic stuff also, in the studio for Prophet and the Cowboys of the Apocalypse 2. Is that what you're going to call it?
We're just putting the finishing touches on the second. I gave you the first one there. We just recorded. It's called Last Days in Paradise. And the difference between the two is that record is 99.9% acoustic, and this one is about 85% acoustic. So we added some electric in there, and that record's 40 minutes long, and this record's over an hour. So
nice.
and we're just putting the finishing touches on the music.
And of course, I'm going to get those new ones
Absolutely.
to add to the other
Absolutely.
show. Okay.
I'm really proud
because
of
that's important to me that I keep getting the music to add to the other podcast.
We don't have a release date yet, but we'll pre-release some music
we'll
before.
and most likely
yeah.
we'll release it digitally this year, and then we'll probably put it out on hard copy CD probably next year.
Nice.
Yeah. And some of my proudest moments in the band were playing the anniversary shows, and then of course playing the last show at Joe's Grotto. That was a pretty special show too.
I was there for that.
Yeah,
I got to see you guys on stage for that.
And the emotions were so high, and everybody was, at the realization that wow, this place is closing down.
At that point in time, that was October, end of October, I had literally only been actively working in the music community for 2 months.
Right.
And here I was at Joe's Grotto and hearing all of these stories of what Joe's meant to this music community.
Great introduction to the scene.
And I was like, Jesus, I don't even know any of this history, but even I know this is going to hurt. Damn, this is going to hurt us.
Yeah.
And it has. It's hurt the scene.
Yeah.
It's been hard. Looking for trying to help the bands find that next great venue to play in. I'm not even finding it. I've got a certain feel for what I like in a venue where I want to see the bands at. And I'm having a hard time finding it.
I wonder if the bar scene's not where it's at anymore. Which is, we've always traditionally gone to bars and stuff. And it's like with the DUI laws and stuff like that, people are so scared to go to bars and drink. They'd rather sit at home and drink and, stream off of YouTube or whatever.
Right.
You can see, my God, great concerts overseas that were, millions of people watching live streaming and that. But
I don't turn my radio on anymore because, I personally don't have to because I'm spoiled and I have it all on my phone.
Right.
I have hours of original music on my phone from the local community, so I just go pop into my files and start hitting that stuff.
It's like the coronavirus thing, though. We were watching wrestling the other night in an empty room.
Yeah, WWE did SmackDown
and there's no
people in the
fun
audience.
involved in that. I mean, you lose the whole vibe of the show and that community that happens in the room. And so if the kids really want this sterile, hey, just feed me music while I sit here on the sofa.
Right.
It kind of precludes what we do.
Right.
And the live interaction and
because the
feeling
band
the
feeds
music
off that crowd just like the crowd feeds off that band, and the performance value goes up so much higher.
So I want to take a step back because we have a member of the band that we unwittingly, unintentionally skipped on introducing.
Oh, I'm a back-of-house girl, too.
It
so
doesn't
okay
matter.
with
You deserve the right to have your name out there as well and what you do for this band.
You say you're a backdoor woman?
See how she did that quick like a ninja.
And that's what it is
she
to
was
be a
waiting,
band manager.
She was just waiting to see who's going to be the smart ass.
And it wasn't the ashtray this time.
Hi, I'm Marge Johnson, and I manage St. Madness and have since 1995.
Thank you for sitting in with us.
I do off and on.
It's all good. It's a pleasure to have you as a part of the group. So that takes us to...
Well, let Marge tell a little bit
Yeah,
about
absolutely,
her
Marge.
life in the band.
No, I just got through saying I do back house.
Notice she
gosh.
clarified this time very
Yeah,
loudly,
we know.
back
Whatever you
house.
call it these days.
Yeah, whatevs.
Code word.
Prophet came to me. I'm in the legal field and have been all of my life. So he comes to me one day. We're friends, not long, and it's like, hey, you ever thought about managing a band? And I looked at him and I went, no, and I should have stuck with that. It's a terrific industry and it'll break your heart. So
I get
you
that.
have to be really tough. A woman in this business has to even be tougher. I made it a rule for 27 years that when I'm doing business, it's professional. I don't slip into the tee-hees. I'm not a girl. I'm not anything. I'm the manager of this band, and you listen to me. And that's the persona I project. And I don't dress in any way that gives them the slightest indication I'm interested in anything but their money. And my job is to be the buffer between them and the shit that comes down in these venues.
Absolutely.
And the rip-offs. And I mean, I wear so many hats that I could take 50% at 10% a job, and instead I take nothing and generally get nothing back. I do this as a labor of love for 27 years. Had it been as more financially successful where I didn't have to go back to my day job, gosh, that would have been more fun. Having said that, it's still fun sometimes. I'm just getting older. So I'm the crabby person, and nobody ever wants to come to me because my patience and tolerance have thinned with age. If I had to manage a kid band, I'd kill them.
Oh goodness, yes.
So.
I'm too old to deal with that.
But it's a joy to manage these guys. I feel like we have probably the best group that we've had, and I in no way disrespecting anybody who came before. But the cohesion and friendship amongst these guys as a whole has been wonderful to be a part of. It makes managing the band, it makes being in the band so much easier. Everybody's on the same page. We have no conflict in this room. Everybody walks out happier than when they walked in. And that goes for me as well. I still believe in the music that I'm the executive producer of. I own the label in conjunction with Prophet, the publishing, all of it. And that way we get to do exactly as we please.
Right.
We have no overlords saying we need this and we need that, and you have to do
You
a
need to
clean
tweak it
version
this way,
right.
and
and we may not release it after all. Sorry, you guys are on the back burner. And that's the reality of real labels,
right.
And there's something to be said for an independent DIY label. I produce a product that any label in this country would match,
right,
and we do it at this level,
right.
And then we went international on purpose, so you have to. You can't just focus on, if you want your music to be heard, you have to make it heard, and that means the whole world, because it's a numbers game. It's
I'm learning
100% numbers game. You got to have. I've always laughed and said you got to have 1 million people see your name go by in fleeting passing to get 1,000 people to ever stop and go, gee, I wonder what that is. To get 100 people to actually stop and maybe click on something for 5 seconds to make a sale.
Right.
And now you can't even do that because of streaming.
Well, there's still ways to make money at it. It's just
No,
not
you
the
sell
kind of
T-shirts
money.
for a living. You don't sell music for a living. And that's very sad for me.
No, we're all selling our bodies now.
And yeah, occasionally they
Well,
just
you were from day one. The minute you
themselves.
stepped up on that stage, you were selling your soul.
On the side, we're the Sun City Gigolos.
I need the ad so I can help prop.
great.
Got to push that out there too.
Endorsed by Viagra.
Picture of us in
Call
that.
your
A lot of lonely rich old ladies out there.
Call your
There's a
Oma.
post office
Well,
poster
Sun
of
City's
us.
just down the
It's
road,
an
right?
AKA the sweaty leathers.
The sweaty leathers.
You guys are
But you love them for it. You gotta love them for it. So, Prophet, your turn.
So, when I was young, my family moved like every 1 to 3 years. And so, by the time I went to high school, I had already lived a few places in California, 2 islands in Hawaii. I lived in Holland. My stepfather was Dutch. We lived in Kansas, Missouri, back to California, back to Missouri, and then in 1986 I moved to Arizona. But when I was young, my ambition was really sports. My goal was I wanted to become a professional soccer player because I learned to play soccer in Holland, and to this day it's still my favorite sport, that and boxing. But when I was in high school, I joined choir, and, up until then, I was a fan of Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Alice Cooper, Kiss, Ted Nugent, bands like that. But when Elvis Presley died, it had a profound effect on me. And I started listening to a lot of Elvis music and reading up on him and studying about his life and so forth. And at night I would go home, and in my room I would sing to Elvis Presley records in my bedroom. And one day in choir, the guy next to me goes down to the choir director, who didn't particularly like me much. His name was Donald Bowers. He was a great, great teacher, but he didn't like me. I was kind of a class clown. And he always called me Homer. He'd never call me Patrick. So this one day, this guy goes to him and he says, "You need to listen to him sing because he sounds like Elvis." So in the middle of class, he goes, "Homer, come down here." And we had quite a large choir. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm in trouble. And I go down there, and he says, "Do you know the song Blue Christmas?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Start singing." So he started playing it. And after a couple of measures, he stopped and he said, "See me after class." And after class, I went to see him, and he said, "Pat," and I noted right away, he said my name, not Homer. He said, "You sound just like Elvis Presley. Would you be interested? The Christmas concert's coming up." And I went to Altaloma High School in Rancho Cucamonga, California. And he said, "Would you be interested in doing a duet with one of the girls from the choir? You do Blue Christmas, and just see what happens." And I thought about it, and I thought, I've never sang solo in front of anybody outside my bedroom, and now in the choir that one day. And I thought, I've got nothing to lose, so why not? So I did it. We sang Blue Christmas, and there's probably 200 people in the auditorium that night. And that night I signed my first autographs. And then he came back to me later and he said, "We have a spring concert coming up. Would you be interested in dressing up like Elvis? And we'll have some of the girls from the choir go nuts and have you do a couple songs."
Scheme.
Yeah, right? So I did that on a Friday night in the spring of '79. And by the time I came back to school on Monday, everybody knew who I was. And it was like all the jocks that would have never given me the time of day before would be like, "Hey, Elvis, what's up, Elvis?" And we had a lot of Hispanic gang kids from, I believe it was the Cucamonga Kings, going to our school. And back then, they all loved oldies.
Right.
They didn't have hip-hop, so they all loved Elvis. So I'd walk by, they had a special rock that they all stood around, and I'd walk by that rock, and they'd be like, "What's up, Elvis?" And it got so bad that people didn't call me Pat anymore. Everybody started calling me Elvis. And I did Elvis for about a year and a half. And after that, one day it really hit me. If you want to be known in music, there's already been an Elvis, and you've got to figure out a way to do your own thing. And so one thing that happened in high school that really changed me forever was all my buddies, while I was doing Elvis, all my buddies started a rock band called Ukiah. And my best friend, Chuck Kameen, was the bass player, and Mark Britton was the guitar player, who's a good friend. And I wanted in this band, so they had me come sing with them. And after it was over, the guitar player in front of everybody says to me, "Pat, you're a really great Elvis, but I don't think you'll ever be able to sing rock music." And I didn't get the gig. And it broke my heart, and I was pissed. And when I went home, I swore, "You know what, I'm not going to sing anymore. Screw this." And after a couple of days of feeling sorry for myself, I said, "No, screw that." And I started singing heavier and heavier music, and then started putting together my own bands. And did that for a lot of years. I continued to move. I moved from California back to Missouri, and then in '86 I came to Arizona. And I joined a band called Ash Wednesday that was known here, that used to play the jar a lot. And we changed the name to Parasite while I was with them for a while. And then I got out of that and got involved in too many drugs and too much drinking, and started playing house parties and things like that, and I thought I was doing something. And what I was really doing was just killing myself and wasting a lot of my youth by being a meth addict and cocaine addict. And anyhow, I got clean and sober in 1990. March 30th, I'll have 30 years off of alcohol, 30 years off of meth, 30 years off of cocaine.
Nice.
I still smoke pot, and that's never been an issue for me. But
You fiend.
yeah, but I jumped from band to band, and when we started Crown of Thorns, we put out our first album in '94, and I just thought to myself, I can jump from band to band like I'm doing, and not really leave behind much of a legacy. I wanted to have a work, a buildup of work that I could look back on. And the only way to do that is to stay with the same band, build that band, and stick with it. And so that's what I've done with, we were called Crown of Thorns from 1993 to 97. And in 97, in the summer of 97, we found there was a Christian rock band in New Jersey that actually trademarked the name Crown of Thorns 2 years before we did. They had it since 91. So Marge and I talked about it. We knew we couldn't fight anybody for the name. They owned it. They paid the money, and they actually owned it. So the album we had out at the time was called The Spiritual Visions of Saint Madness. So Marge and I, we got with an attorney, and we did a worldwide search, and nobody owned the name Saint Madness. So we trademarked it on the spot, and we've been Saint Madness ever since. I've never, I put Saint Madness briefly on hold from 2000 to late 2003, because I co-founded a band with Wiley Arnett, who's the guitarist of Sacred Reich. We started the band The Human Condition, and Margie is actually the one who came up with the name The Human Condition. And I thought at that time, Saint Madness is probably over. I'm going to stick with this. So while I was in The Human Condition, we put out the first best of by Saint Madness called We Make Evil Fun. And I sent it all over the world. And the reviews we were getting were 90 to 95% pretty positive. And, of course, you always have a few bad ones. But I realized at that time that there was still a place out there for Saint Madness. And in The Human Condition, of course, we don't wear face paint there. And I went by my real name. And I kind of felt like a fish out of water. I love the music. I love Wiley. There was no issue there.
It just wasn't your skin to
I went
be
to
in.
Wiley one day and I said, Wiley, having me in your band is like having Alice Cooper trying to be your singer. I belong in the theatrical world. That's what I do. And so I left the band in November of 2003, and in January of 2004, I reacquired our original rehearsal space, which was in this complex, only a different room, and began the rebuild of Saint Madness in January of 2004, and we're still here now. I've never once regretted sticking with this band all these years through many different band members. We've probably had 20 different people on different albums over the years and all that. I've never once regretted doing that, making that choice. And oddly enough, after I left The Human Condition, a few years later, AK from Flotsam and Jetsam became their singer. So I'm in good company,
Right.
in that. And they sound, by the way, when AK was with The Human Condition, I think they were incredible. They sounded amazing. And now, of course, Flotsam and Jetsam and Sacred Reich are busy. They're back on their own labels and touring and making records, so the Human Condition is on hold now. I don't know if they'll ever do a reunion, but if they do, I want to be there.
You bet. I actually got to meet AK at the Waz concert. Will, the drummer for Waz, has stepped in and become almost a father figure in the music side of my life. And he appreciates what I do in the fact of me helping support the music community. He looks at it he flat told me, he said, when I was young and in music, we didn't have somebody like you. And we needed somebody like you. Now the young bands have a you, and I want to make sure you stay here. So he stands behind me and does a lot. One of the things that he did for me that night was when he wasn't busy doing his band stuff, he would walk over and tap me on the shoulder and go, "That's so-and-so. Now you're going to come out of your comfort zone, and you're going to walk over and introduce yourself to that person and tell them who you are and take a picture with them and make sure you post that." And I'm like,
I think that's really good advice.
Dang it. Oh, okay.
Franco used to do that in the jar. He had a picture of himself with every famous person that came through.
And he had all his favorite local bands, and he took pictures with them as well.
Yeah.
So when you went in the Mason jar back then, it was Arizona's Whiskey A Go-Go. It was a museum to heavy metal and rock and roll and punk rock.
Yeah.
And the whole place was just pictures on all the walls. And when you walked in there, you knew that you were in some place that was special.
Right.
I was very sad to see it get sold. In fact, we played there 3 weeks before it closed, and became, later became the Rebel Lounge that it is now. But I'm very proud and happy to say I probably played the Mason Jar at least 100 times over the years.
Part of me wants to say, because I've only been to the Rebel Lounge once, and I walked in there. I was there with Oddity Paradox, and I think it was like my 4th show in the music community of having gone to. And he's telling me these history stories about when it was the Mason Jar. So I've got in the back of my head, oh my God, this is this great landmark place. This is going to be so phenomenal.
It's a dive.
And I walk in now. I'm not really tall, but I am 5'9". And I walk in and went, damn, I almost feel like I have to duck because I might actually hit that ceiling. And holy cow, Tim is well over 6 foot tall, and how is he going to reach up and not hit the ceiling?
So many musicians wang their heads on the crossbeam on the stage. If you were a little bit tall and got a little excited and jumped at all, you almost knocked yourself out.
In the old days, there was a bar in the middle of the stage. I slammed into that thing more than once.
A lot of people did.
Lord, yeah.
But no, see, it's not the size of the building, and I get exactly what you're saying, because a lot of people will go to the Whiskey A Go-Go for the first time, and they're like, this is it? But it's not about that. It's about the history and the vibe and the spirit in that building. All the bands that have played there. All of your heroes and my heroes, including, I believe, Nirvana, played at the Mason
Nirvana's
Jar
not
one
one of
time
my
or
heroes.
another. Well, you know what? I'm a Nirvana fan.
You can be a Nirvana
And
fan.
right over your shoulder, that black tapestry up there is a copy of Kurt Cobain's death certificate. And I hang that there in tribute to him, not against him.
I don't have anything against Nirvana. I just was never a fan of grunge.
Yeah.
I to this day apologize for grunge because it ruined the ability to comfortably wear a flannel.
Well, what's funny is when all those bands came out, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, etc., they were originally all in the metal section.
Yeah.
They were metal.
When you went to a record store, they were in the metal section. And then all of a sudden they go, well, no, we're grunge. And I get it. They were trying to separate themselves. They took away the guitar solos, and I get that. But here's what's funny.
How Alice in Chains is called grunge.
Alice in Chains is a metal band.
They were a metal band.
Yeah.
But here's what's funny. So in the early to mid-'90s, everybody was saying, no, it's separate. It's really separate. Well, now, when you turn on any rock station, you'll have Nirvana 1 minute and Motley Crue the next.
Right.
And it all works just fine. It's just rock music.
Well,
That's all it is.
They're all
And
just
that's-
rock songs.
I come at music from a different angle. Because I was raised in if you think of music as a giant pendulum, I was literally raised listening to the entire pendulum from polka to whatever was the newest and modern. That was the range of music I was raised on. I was also raised with the thought that when it comes to music, it doesn't matter what kind of music it is. You need to respect it. Because that, whether you like it or not, you need to at least respect it, because that is somebody's art.
Yeah, music's the language of the soul.
And that's it. They put their heart and soul in it. Now, the person who taught me that was my father, who played the guitar and then the drums before that. So I was taught by a musician to love music.
Right.
But so that's what I come into music with, what I've come into this community as I'm setting up shows. I don't care what flavor of rock you consider yourself. That's a boundary that I don't feel is necessary. Mm-hmm. It's, what do you sound like? Can I make this band that says they are death metal sound good playing with this band? Mm-hmm. I can make it. It sounds good. They complement each other. Great. You both are on the same show bill.
In the old days of festivals, and I've been going to concerts my whole life, and I've been to some of the biggest. In the old days, in the 70s and so forth, if you went to a festival, you had Santana and Hart and Ted Nugent and Aerosmith all in the same concerts.
Right.
And you had Dave Mason was in that. You just had a mix of music.
Why
That's
may
what
not
a
all been
festival
the
was.
same day. But they
Well,
were
no,
all
even in the same
but I'm just
day.
saying,
Right.
yeah, but just sometimes it may not have been all the same day, but they were still all there.
In the 80s, they started this cookie cutter, and I believe it was the labels, started this cookie cutter idea where if you do a festival, if it's a heavy metal, it's got to be all heavy metal. And then one's got to be all country or one all alternative.
You remember the first Heavy Us Festival, Boomtown Rats, all kinds of, what was it, the Figs.
Well, on the alternative day,
yeah.
They had 4 days on those festivals.
Yeah,
I mean, and not to get too political, but quite honestly, if we are making our idols, and that's what you guys are, when you're on stage, you are an idol. There are kids looking up to you. If we are making our idols draw lines and boundaries, it's no wonder that the public is drawing lines and boundaries. They are being taught by the entertainers to draw lines and boundaries.
Well, and then it kind of thins everything out. Like in the 80s, everything was metal. It was heavy metal, right? So now if you have 10 different genres of metal, they're all trying to separate from each other.
And that's separating the crowd.
When they were all together, they were much more powerful, because that's why metal was the biggest form of music in the 80s. It made the most money above all the other kinds of music.
Right.
Because it was all united. It was together. Once you start separating all that, it's like having a huge army and then thinning it out all over the world to where...
You're covering too many fronts.
Correct. And it's better to all be together.
And it's one of the things that I've seen since I've been in the community is all of this division. And it's not just the division of the bands. It's lack of communication between bands and promoters and bands and producers, and people not sitting down and remembering to read a piece of paper before they sign their name and agree to something and hash out the details ahead of time. There's a lot of that going on that's hurting our music community.
Well, 99% of the shows that are done, 99.9, have no paperwork
There's
at
no
all.
contract.
There's
Yeah,
no
it's all
contract.
verbal.
It's a verbal
It's
contract.
all verbal.
And sometimes people honor their verbal.
And I'll tell you
contracts,
something
and
else
sometimes
that
they
I
don't.
truly, and I'm passionate about this, and this is one of the reasons I've really been looking forward to this interview with you, is we decided a while back that we're not going to sell tickets anymore. Now, if we're put on a national show where we're opening for the national, and it's a strong enough national where the tickets are pretty much going to sell themselves, then that's fine. But we're not going to sell tickets, which is why we don't play Club Red, we don't play the Marquee Theater, because I'm not going to have them hand me 100 tickets and say, okay, now go sell.
Because that's your paycheck.
The biggest slap in the face someone can give you is to go, man, I love your band, man, you guys are great, here's your 100 tickets, go sell them, right? So you get on stage in front of that crowd, and let's say there's 300, 500, 900, you got a big crowd, whatever, in front of you. While you're on stage for your 20 to an hour, and that crowd's partying, and they're happy, and they're buying drinks, and they're singing, or they're having a good time. They're not leaving.
Right.
You've done your job. Our job is to be entertainers. We're an entertainment band. We'll entertain any crowd that's in front of us. That's our job. Our job is not ticket brokering, and it never was. And in the 80s, in LA, it started where they would say to the bands, okay, you got to sell tickets. Well, back in the 80s in Los Angeles, it was worth it to do that because you had a ton of labels around the area, and the chances of one of them A&R people coming to see you, they might sign you.
Right.
So you're going to pay to play. But that's long gone. That's long gone. So what are you selling your tickets for when a promoter says, sell tickets for me? What are you selling tickets for? The promoter? Well, the promoter's supposed to do their job. Promoter means they sell tickets. They promote their shows, and the way that they make money to have shows is they sell their tickets. It's not for the bands to sell tickets. Now, people out there, in bands that are doing this might disagree with me because they'll go, well, hey, we played the Marquee Theater. We opened for somebody. I get it.
That looks good on your resume, but think about it. You paid to be there. You didn't get paid. You paid to be there.
But just for me, we've played a ton of national openers, and we've never once had to sell a ticket to do it. And we played with all kinds of people. And the only time that when we played 2 Milwaukee Metal Fests, and Milwaukee Metal Fest used to be huge, and 100 bands would come from all over the world, and they would play on 4 different stages. And the promoter, unless you were the headliners, the promoters would give the bands $1,000 worth of tickets, and then they would sell those tickets, but they got to keep the money.
Right.
So the money went back to them. But you paid $1,000 to be in the festival. Something like that is worth it because there were magazines and radio stations from all over the world. You got all kinds of press.
Right.
It was worth the $1,000 in that sense. But what is it worth here to peddle a bunch of tickets for a promoter? I just don't see it anymore at all. And again, I think it's a slap in the face when a promoter tells you, you're my bro, you're my buddy, now here's your tickets, go sell them. You get up there, you do your job, you entertain the crowd you played in front of, and at the end of the night they go, oh, bro, man, you guys only sold 13 tickets, bro, so here's your $20 for your whole band. That's a slap in your face.
Yeah,
our job was to entertain the crowd, and we did our job.
Right.
We deserve to be paid.
Helping sell the tickets shouldn't be a part of what your pay is.
Of course not. Try to do
California
that in any...
imported this. I remember when it happened.
Franco was the first one to do it here.
On the other hand of that, you've got these bands that aren't very good. They've not been in the scene long. They've not paid their dues, but they got a rich mama or sugar daddy or something that will go and buy $2,500 worth of tickets just so they can be the #1 band opening on that show. And that's not right either. You should have to audition and be good enough to be on that stage, not be able to buy your way onto the show.
So here's a purely from my own perspective and learning and setting up shows. If you guys were invited to a show that you had a guaranteed pay, no matter how many tickets you sold, would you then help sell tickets?
Again, that's not our job.
No, I would not. Because I'm not a ticket seller.
I would not. I'm asking, is it a general...
Bands get paid.
To me, business is business. If somebody likes St. Madness and they want us on the show, look, we don't ask for a ton of money.
Right.
But I don't want to be disrespected either.
No, and no band should be disrespected for the level of work that you guys go through to get where you are.
You know, if you need plumbing done at your house and you hire a plumber, you don't ask him to go sell tickets to do your plumbing.
Right.
He comes over, you negotiate a price, and he fixes your plumbing, and he gets paid for being a professional. The other thing is, if you want these bands to feel like professionals, and they are, because they're working, they need to be paid, even if it's $100. It doesn't have to be a big amount of money.
Right.
But if you treat bands like professionals, hopefully a lot of them will act like professionals then, But if you treat them like they don't matter, they're going to get discouraged. They're going to be dickheads to other people because they're in a bad mood because they're being ripped off by everybody.
For instance, we already pay quite a bit for the privilege of doing a promoter's show. We get a trailer. We often do posters, big full-size posters that we poster at the venues and hand out and give to the bands and all that
Right.
stuff. And we put money up front just to play.
You know
the show.
what? We pay over $400 a month in this rehearsal studio so that we can rehearse and be good enough to play that person's show.
Right.
And not just get together.
Well, and
We,
that's
we
an-
already pay to play.
And I understand that. I absolutely understand that thought process of it. And I've said it hundreds of times. I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. Musicians don't come into this business to make money. There is no money in it for you guys until you're at Metallica level. And even then, how much money did they put out before they got to Metallica level?
The indies make money. The truth is they live a nice, solid, upper middle class life. To make real money, yeah. And poor Metallica could put every penny they've ever made on records, and it won't touch Britney Spears first. So it's subjective,
Right.
You know. But this is the only business I've ever seen where the product itself is the bottom feeder of its own industry.
Right.
And that's my job, is to stand between them and that mentality.
Right.
And again, we all have a job to do. If you look up the word promoter in the dictionary and you look up the words band, you're not going to see crossover there.
Right.
We of course do it at this level because we all have to wear every freaking hat they make. But we paid our dues. We paid 27 years of dues.
The other thing is that I never hear brought up is in the old days, before tickets, a promoter had to go to the radio stations and put radio ads on there. They had to go to places like the Phoenix New Times and take out ads. Now, people don't do that anymore, and I get it. They say they can't afford it or whatever. I get it. But here's what you don't understand. When you're promoting on Facebook, right, you're promoting to your pile of friends. And your pile of friends on Facebook, you might talk to 1/10 of, however, I have 5,000 friends almost on Facebook, right?
Right.
I probably talk to 300 of them. So when I promote on Facebook, even though people in Europe are seeing it and everything, it's not doing any good for the local scene. But when you had an ad on KUPD, even now,
Right.
if you have an ad on KUPD, you are touching so many more people in your market
Right.
that you're not touching by just promoting on Facebook. If you advertise in the Phoenix New Times, you are hitting way more people in your own market where your show is, where your festival is.
Right.
Because everybody picks up the New Times, or they used to. But as printed press disappears and major radio stations disappear, the whole community loses that avenue to promote in.
Right.
And that was a huge, big avenue.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you'd have an ad on KUPD, and we'd be like, hi, I'm Prophet, and this is Sid. We're from St. Madness. We're playing at the Mason Jar this Friday night. And do you know how many people would hear that radio ad that are driving to work and everything? All the people that are not on your friends list.
They were
Right.
worth the
So
investment.
you have to go beyond. Facebook is good, but it's just one avenue of promotion.
It is.
If promoters went beyond Facebook like the old school way, and they did a lot more of that, they might actually reach a whole lot more people and start seeing an uptick in the attendance at their shows. But if they just
Well,
stick with
actually-
Facebook,
And the stores disappeared.
Desert Vikings, one of the guitar players for Desert Vikings, he was trying to step into starting to build shows. He's decided that it's not worth his time. But the shows that he built, he was actually creating those flyers and hanging them in
Correct.
stores
Yeah,
again.
absolutely.
Correct.
You have to.
and you know what else? When you put out flyers and posters, you left something for the fans to take home.
Right.
Or they could come to you
And
and
they
say,
do.
hey,
Sign
would you
my
sign this
poster.
flyer for
You
me?
bet.
Or think
We
about
put
how many
those out for
times...
so many shows just like that.
Think about how many people you've seen online that'll pull up a flyer from the 80s and go, hey, I was at this show, and they cherish that flyer.
I have a box that was just given to me last night as one of the gifts that was given to me at the show as a thank you for what I have put in this last 6 months. And Penny, my counterpart, is the one that gave me that box, because when I sat and did her interview, before we did that, we sat down and had hey, let's have a talk. Let's talk about how this is going to go. Let me give you a little more background on me. And I brought out my pile of cherished possessions at this point of things that I've received from the bands that mean the world to me. A handwritten note from Will, the drummer of Waz, where he thanked me for their interview and wrapped it around the ticket that he gave me for their show. That's now in that box that she gave me.
He's a good guy.
He's got such a good heart.
You know.
But that meant the world that somebody took the time to handwrite a thank you note, period, but handwrite a thank you note? Oh my God.
And the other thing back in the day, how it worked was you would make a deal with the venue owner because there wasn't like a ton of promoters around. So when you booked a show, you'd do it with the venue owner or whoever books for that venue.
Right.
And they would give you a percentage of the bar that would be split with the bands. So you didn't have to sell tickets. If you brought in a good crowd, the bar did good, they would take a percentage of that money and they would pay you. Everybody's happy. Everybody got paid for their work.
Right.
Everybody was treated like a professional. Because on that night of your show, you're not necessarily an employee of the venue, but you kind of are.
You're a subcontractor.
So you're being treated as a professional when the bar says, we'll take some of the bar percentage and pay you guys for the job that you do. That's a lot better than handing people tickets and saying, go sell them. So now you're putting all the stress on that band, so not only do they have to work to write their songs, pay for good equipment, rehearsal spaces, trailers to move their shit sometimes, now they have to run around and peddle their own tickets too. Well, is there anything else? Can I bend over for you anymore? And like I said, I know there's going to be a certain percentage of bands or artists out there that'll disagree with me on this. And yes, I'm old, and I'm the old school way. And I consider myself on the way out. Not, my time left in metal music is not very big compared to the time I've spent in it.
Right.
But I've spent my whole life doing this. The longest I was ever not in a band since I started was 6 months. I have always been involved in it. And my belief is to build the scene, not to hurt the scene. I don't want to be a part of anything that's going to hurt our scene. I love the Arizona metal scene because it's done so much good for my band and for my family and for our community. And the last show at Joe's Grotto, it reminded me a little bit of right after 9/11. Because right after 9/11, it was such a horrific event that our country became a country briefly.
Again,
and we weren't fighting about Republicans and Democrats and all that shit. We were just coming together because we were attacked. Well, your local scene is being attacked because it's falling apart. Bands have got to get together. One of the ways that I think will help grow the scene is I know people aren't going to want to hear this, but my advice or my suggestion is break up your little cliques. Bands that don't normally play together have to play together because you've got to mix it up because... Right. If we have our 10 friend bands, we can only do so many shows with those bands where the fans start going, well, I've seen that lineup 5 times already.
Right.
You've got to mix it up. You've got to have bands playing together that have never played together because that's something new and different. It's like, oh, my God, these guys have never done a show together. I want to see that show.
Right.
We've got to come together and we've got to support each other and not do all the little, well, hey, you're my cool bro and we're all cool bros, and because that only lasts for so long, and it does work for a while. The click thing does work for a while, but it doesn't work that long.
So that touches another subject for me. When I did my interview with Voodoo Sliver, I don't even remember how we ended up on the topic, but Johnny Tsunami said something that actually hit me. And it's something I've been working to change about my own vocabulary as well as getting the word out there. That word scene that keeps getting said. Everybody says it. It's not a bad word until you start thinking about what you were just talking about. Scene is a very closed off word. We're not a scene. we're a community, and we need to act like a community in the old school way of supporting each other so that we can all grow.
Absolutely. Every time I've used the word scene, I've also meant community, a family.
Well, and
it's
a
still
lot
a family.
And a lot of people don't mean the word scene to be that closed off.
No, I certainly don't when I use it.
But that is what is out there. Is people are talking about the scene. They're talking about that little clique.
I talk about Arizona metal scene.
Well, that's what
It's historically called
everybody tries
Right.
to talk about the Arizona scene, but when they sit and listen and break it all down, it's cliquish too, because you hear people talking about, well, the downtown scene is great. I don't know what you're talking about because our downtown scene is great. So it's all.
It's just defining.
It's,
I guess
and,
right.
and it's one more wall that we have thrown up in between us. And I've learned coming into this from my lack of experience of music and lack of experience of any of this. I came in fresh and new and the innocent, where I didn't understand that there should be walls in music, or why there are walls in music.
Because it's so competitive, because, you only have so many stages around the town and around the city, and you have way more bands that want to be on that stage on those nights. Like back in the day, you had bands playing 7 nights a week. So back then, you had to play as a opener during the week first, and then you might get up to a headliner during the week, but you had to earn your way to the weekends.
Lo and behold,
You
you
didn't
had to
get
be
Friday
good.
and Saturday just because.
Now
They only put you on Friday and Saturday, so now it's even worse because you have every band in a way competing to get to that Friday and
those
Saturday.
prime
And
spots.
20 years ago, they estimated that was 600 bands looking for those nights. I can't imagine with our exponential growth in the valley what that number is today. Maybe 1,000.
Well, and
looking for fewer and fewer
And venues
smaller
are closing.
stage real estate.
And we've got promoters out there that will grab anybody who has 3 people or more that can actually play an instrument and
can
say,
sell those
let
tickets.
me make you famous. I'll take my cut and make you famous, without taking the time to go, but have you earned the right to be famous?
Yeah, see, if I owned a venue, right, I would only have the bands that I think are really good in there. And that's why I probably wouldn't be successful at having a venue, because I wouldn't make them earn it. I would go out and check out the bands.
I think you would
and
have
the
a more
ones that I
successful
believe
club
The
because
customers
people are
that.
going to come see better quality bands.
They're
Right,
paying to come
right.
in the
I
door.
That's our premise entirely. Is they pay their hard-earned dollars to come in here, and you give them exactly what they paid for,
That's
or
right.
more. If
Yeah.
you can't, why are you up there?
And that's why we're not up on stage all drunk and all that. First of all, I don't drink, but none of these guys get drunk before a show because we do not support that. Someone like you comes to a show and they pay their $10 because they like our band or they like a band on the bill. And you, above all, deserve to get a professional show. You deserve to get more than your money's worth, in my opinion. And so we're not up there to be a bunch of party drunk fucks, because that fucks the music up, and then the fans go home going, man, those guys suck tonight. We work hard to be professional.
Right.
Every time we rehearse in this room, we play the music the exact same way we do like when we are on stage. The same volume. I sing with the same power. I don't hold back at rehearsal, because everything that we do on stage, we worked out in rehearsal.
Well, and the fact is, and anybody can do the research on it, if you are not rehearsing it the way that you intend it to be on stage, it's going to be on stage the way you rehearsed it.
Correct. And
Because
we rehearse
that
3
muscle
nights a
memory.
week. We rehearse 3 nights a week.
I pitch muscle memory to everybody, including lawyers. You don't understand how this works.
And we've rehearsed 3 nights a week the entire history of this band, because it's that important to us that we be a professional band and that we deliver a professional show.
So I want to talk about, because Patrick, you and I spend time talking on Messenger a lot. I do enjoy those conversations, by the way. Thank you. You've got some songs out there. You've got one song out there that I was warned. Cracked me up. Somebody took the time to warn me about one of your songs, and if they send that one to you, you might not want to play it because it'll get some bad press.
What song was it?
I can't remember the name of it.
Then it didn't make that big of an
the
impression.
sexual abuse.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Head. It might have been Head.
No, it was sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse.
It's always been a fan favorite.
It's a fan favorite.
Well, you sent it to me.
Yeah.
And I listened to it. And I'm like, what's so wrong with this that people
it's
are
consensual
feeling?
abuse. That's all.
It's BDSM.
You know what?
Why is this such a big deal?
You know how that song got written? And the music was already done. Ben Pearson wrote the music to that. And I had promised the band, by next rehearsal, I'll have lyrics. I took a rough recording of it home. So we're getting ready to go to rehearsal. And it hits me. I didn't work on that song at all. So I sat down and I thought, what are the best things I could say to offend everybody? And that's what I did. I wrote it down, and we went in and fit it to the music, and that became sexual abuse. It was like 5 minutes. I just thought, how do I make everybody upset, you know?
Well, and that was I had somebody warn me, so when you sent that, I'm like, oh, here's that song.
Yeah.
Oh, they were on like the 5th rehearsal, and I looked at the bass player and I said, have you actually listened to the words he's singing? And he's like, just a few. And I'm like, you should listen.
Yeah, because, we play so loud, half the time they don't know what I'm singing. If it's new, you know. But that's half the fun. Now, this brings up a very good subject now, right? So we live in a PC world now, right? Now, listen,
yeah.
Anybody out there listening, a PC world cannot coexist with metal music. Metal music was supposed to be rebellious. It's supposed to be dangerous. It's supposed to be off the wall. It's metal music, hard, acid rock, whatever, was the original alternative to everything that was on the radio. We were the original alternative. Now, if everything's getting so PC where we're all afraid to say this or say that or say that, I'm glad I'm old because I'm going to continue to say whatever the fuck I want. Because that's how I've always lived, and that's how I'm going to continue to live. And love me or hate me, at least you know where you stand with me. I don't walk around and put on a fake face for anybody.
Except the makeup.
Even that is just an alter ego from the inside, you know. I will treat you the same here as I will from the stage. I won't be fake for anybody because I just am what I am, you know. And years ago, after getting sober and all that, maybe I just came to grips with, you know what, Pat? You're just Pat. That's what you are, but you don't have to be ashamed of yourself. You have as much right to be on this planet as the Queen of England or the President or the Pope or whoever. I have just as much right to be here, and I have a right to state my feelings and my beliefs and not be ashamed of myself.
I lived in California for a few years when I was younger, and my parents, my dad and stepmom, probably taught me the best lesson I needed to learn for California. We all put our pants on one leg at a time.
That's right.
Everybody's just everybody else.
And if you remember that, everybody out there is just another person. They live a life. They have their struggles. But they're still people. They still have their struggles. They're just different than yours. Maybe a different income bracket than yours.
I was sitting in my little cigar shop that I love to hang out at about a month ago. And I'm sitting there, and one lady was working there named Rosemary. She's awesome. And it was her and I. And in walks James Hetfield from Metallica.
Nice.
And before he even got his foot in the door, I look up and I go, oh my God, are you James Hetfield from Metallica? And he goes, not today. And then he walked by and he went down one of the little aisles to look at cigars. And I said, yeah, but you really are, right? He goes, not today.
No.
So he, as he was walking around the shop, I could see him looking at me out of the corner of his eye. And I'm guessing here, but I think he felt bad because he was trying to shoo me away because,
because he was trying to have personal space.
He was just trying to have personal space.
Yeah.
He's here because he goes to rehab here. And they canceled a whole stadium tour because he's trying to get himself together.
That. Yeah.
So believe me, I wanted to jump up and go, dude, can I have an autograph and all that? But I thought, number one, this is my friend's place of business who owns the shop, and this is a customer. And two, I could see the pain on this guy's face. Now, I have no idea what he's worth, but I'm sure it's a lot, okay, of money. But even with all that money, I could see how unhappy and hurting this guy is. And I thought to myself, just give him a space, just let him hang out. So he actually, after a little while, he came over and he sat by me. And this was back actually when the World Series was on, because he said to me, so who are you rooting for? And I said, well, the Astros. And he goes, yeah, me too. And then his buddies came and got him and they left. And I just thought, wow, how surreal, But James Hetfield, Ozzy Osbourne, they're human beings just like you and I.
That is kind of the theme for this podcast, because those fans standing out in that audience look up at you guys on stage and they get the wide eyes and the, oh my God, I'm in the presence of rock stars, and that giddy excitement. I want them all to know the side of the musicians that I've gotten to meet. That side of you that we get to sit down and have these conversations and talk about all of these taboo subjects or not taboo subjects or opinions. And because I've learned, I am the living embodiment of fans are fickle, friends will fight for you.
That's correct. When you fuck that groupie and you're going, yeah, I'm the man. Well, next week she's fucking a guy in a different band.
And last week she was fucking somebody in another band.
And that's okay. You know what? Many a groupie has kept many bands going because generally the groupies had the money. That's why so many bands in the 80s dated strippers. My ex-wife is a stripper.
Strippers have money,
My ex-wife was a stripper, a very good one.
They bought me plenty of guitars.
You know what you call a musician with no girlfriend?
Broke.
Homeless.
Yeah, and that is one of those jokes. But my feelings on that are, it's great, man. Like, I miss the days when women were flashing their tits at the band and everything. Again, we're in the PC world. Now people are afraid. Everything's so scary, Back then, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and it was awesome. And that's why people couldn't wait to go out to shows, because it was exciting. There was excitement going on. People felt free. That's why women flashed, because they felt free to do it. Everything was like, yeah, this is rock and roll. Now, it's almost like people are like doing these little steps, and being careful, walking on eggshells and that. And I'm against all of it, because I like all of it in general is art, like you said. It's art. Art doesn't have a limit. No. Art doesn't have a critic. I mean, it's got people that will say, I don't like that particular art. But
that's
art
great,
isn't
but somebody
about...
does.
Yeah, it's not about critics.
Subjective.
Art is about you have this feeling inside you and boom, you create something with it. And it's not about whether it's good or bad or indifferent or... Years ago, there was an art exhibit that had a wine glass with urine in it and a crucifix in it, okay? Now, people called that art. Now, for me, it's not my kind of art, and I'm a Christian. On the same hand, I would fight for their right to be able to do that.
You bet.
I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to like it.
You've got
but the
to
beauty of art, there's something for everybody out there.
Yeah.
You don't hinder art. So if at shows people want to get wild and they want to mosh and girls want to flash their tits and all that, do it. Why not have that? That's the excitement.
That's actually been one of the best parts of coming into this community for me. I am a very reserved person. I was raised to be a very reserved person. My mom was born in England. I was still raised with a lot of that English upbringing. of you don't speak too loudly, you don't behave too loudly, you are to be seen and not heard. So I walk into these bars with this chip on my shoulder. Jim will tell you the story of when he first met me. He thought I was going to kick his ass because I just had that look like I was ready to. And then I get lost in the music. And I find myself dancing. And when that first started happening, I was like, oh, no, you can't do that. You're representing the bands. You've got to be the professional. And now I've gotten to the point, fuck being the professional. I'm having a good time, and I know these guys, and I know they appreciate seeing that I'm having a good time with their music, that so much so that I've let go of those constraints that I was raised with.
Well, and freedom is, America was always about freedom. It wasn't about telling everybody what you can and can't do all the time.
I was raised by a Southern belle.
You understand the constraints.
The Baldridge Book of Etiquette. But
right?
I used to also front the wives and girlfriends dance line for the band during shows. I have no problem whatsoever. I used to, back before I got old and my neck and back went out, I'd windmill. I'd do anything, because I'm still having fun, whether I manage it or not.
And that was the whole idea why you want to go out, because it wasn't what you had at home. It wasn't what you had at school or what you had at the job. You go out there, let your hair down, go crazy for a few hours, and then when you go home at night, it's like therapy. You're at peace with the world.
Absolutely.
But if you start taking all that away little by little, you're sterilizing it.
Yeah.
Metal is not about being sterilized. Metal is about aggression, and it's about rebellion. That's what it was always about. That's what rock and roll. The term rock and roll means to be banging a chick in the backseat of a car, rocking and rolling down the street. That's what the term rock and roll meant in the beginning.
So, let's talk about another one of what has become, and by the way, everybody knows I came from a country background. I came into this telling everybody I'm a country girl at heart. How I ended up helping to promote metal bands, I don't know.
It's not that far apart.
Even my son questioned it when I started into it. I can't call myself a country girl. I finally the other day went, I don't know that I can use that phrase anymore because I like St. Madness. And how do you say that you're a country girl when you're listening to St. Madness?
We like country
A lot
music.
of country guys and girls do.
I went to Garth Brooks. We went to Kenny Chesney.
I play country music just as well as I play metal.
But it's that thing. I put up a wall in my own world as much as I'm against having those walls. I put up a wall in my own world of saying I'm a country girl. I shouldn't be doing this, yet I am. Well, no, that wall's got to come down. I'm not, yes, I am a country girl. I also like rock. I also like metal.
We all build our own walls.
I'm almost 64 years old, and I manage a heavy metal band, and I still go out and thrash as good as I can, and I have a great time, and I love the big beats, and I love the music, and you can do it as long and as you want. You can be anybody you want.
Oh, yeah, many a time I've looked out in the crowd and seen Marge headbanging back.
Yeah, then I stagger off.
I'll be honest, for me personally, because I'm with Marge, we could be playing in front of a ton of people, and I always look for her in the crowd, and I see what expressions on her face or how she is, and if she's out there having a good time, I relax just a little more.
I mean, I've been playing with St. Madness long enough that I do the exact same thing. I base what's going on Marge's expression.
Because I let them know by my face.
Well, and I do that too. I do that because I have bands that I have debriefings with after their set, and they'll be talking about what they messed up on that set. And I'll look at them and go, man, did you see my facial expression change? Did you see me stop and look at you funny? No, because nobody in the crowd noticed it, so shut up and move on.
Yeah, and sometimes I just keep a neutral face so that they don't freak out because I just freaked out. Okay, why am I freaking out?
You can see her for a second, she gets this.
I'm just a little more.
And then
my eyes get a little bigger.
So,
you guys are all complicated at shows, looking at everything.
So
I'm scanning the front for boobs.
I want to talk about the song "Walk Your Own Way."
Walk your own path.
Or Walk Your Own Path. So sorry. Tell us, because I already know the story, but tell the rest of the world the story behind that.
I believe how that happened. I believe first Sid had a riff, and what happens with Sid a lot, because I've known him so long, is he'll play a riff and right away I'll know what I'm going to write about lyrically. I write the lyrics for the band.
Mm-hmm.
And Walk Your Own Path is written for my youngest son, Dylan. And Dylan is the bass player in the local band Emerald Isle, and he used to be the vocalist. And from what I understand, from what he tells me, he has another band, and he's the vocalist there. But I didn't raise Dylan. Dylan was raised with his mom and his stepdad. And I wasn't there for a lot of his upbringing. And so I sat down and I thought, someday I'm not going to be on this planet. And I want to put everything in one song that I ever wanted to say to my son when he was growing up, had I been there. And so Walk Your Own Path is basically from a father to a son. And it's just his dad giving advice. Whether he takes it or not, that's up to him. But I wanted to leave, it's like a gift, I could give him a present, I could give him money, but I don't think it'll matter near as much as a song, as a piece of art from his dad, just to him, just from me to him, so that he'll have that for the rest of his life, should he choose to want to listen to it. It'll always be out there available for him, and he can actually hear his own dad singing to him.
Right. That song hit me for a lot of different reasons. I am learning to walk my own path. Still, 48 years old, I'm still having to fight to keep myself on my path, not the path I was raised to walk. And it's a struggle. So that song, I listened to that and I'm like, that's it. And I have a son, and he's almost 23, and that's how I tried to raise him. You need to walk your own path. You need to be strong enough to walk your own path. You need to do it right, but you do need to be you and be okay with that. My father, we were raised with a lot of really funny, obnoxious sayings, because we're one of those really funny, obnoxious families. And one of the things that I was raised with was, you can do anything you want in this life, but remember, we always, as your family, have the right to laugh at you. My son was raised with, don't scare the new people. To the point that if I told him somebody was coming over to the house that he hadn't met yet, Bubba, we got company coming, he would look at me and go, I know, Mom, don't scare the new people. And it was always an exciting moment for him when I would look at him and go, no, baby, go ahead and try. Because that meant he got to really go wild.
Yeah.
But it's teaching our children to be strong. My dad's theory in raising us, because he wasn't a full-time dad as well. So he always felt he had to counterbalance in his home what we were learning in our mother's home. And he always told us, I am giving you the tools. What you choose to do with those tools is on you. But my job as your parent is to give you those tools. So that song, and then of course, if you listen closely enough to that song, fans out there, you're going to hear the Native American singing in the background. That was another thing that really, I'm like, oh my God. And you blended it. You guys blended that in there so beautifully. That took me back. It actually took me back to my first Sundance.
Both my boys were born in Arizona, and even though I was born in California, Arizona's my home, and I'm very proud of Arizona. I'm very proud to be from Arizona, and so we wrote the song Arizona. I thought, why not? Show who you are and where you're from and be proud of it, And my eldest son, Marge, and I raised. So Josh gets to spend all kinds of time with his dad, and always did. Josh grew up in this band. He's our crew chief.
Nice.
When we put all our stage up and everything, we have our own crew that does it. And he's the crew chief. And that's him right there in the shirt.
Nice.
He's also Happy Evil up there. He plays the character. But he gets to be with his dad all the time. Dylan didn't. So like I said, I wanted to leave behind something lasting from my heart to his that he could always have. And as a songwriter, I write songs for everybody. I mean, Marge has a couple songs I wrote for her, and my sister unfortunately passed away last Monday, and we have a really beautiful song for her on the new Prophet and the Cowboys of Apocalypse album called Kate.
Nice.
And she got to hear the rough version of it, rough mix, and she said it made her cry, and she said it was so beautiful. And that's all I know to give. Like I said, I could give people, I can give you money,
from the heart.
I can buy you a present, but that's just a thing. Money's just a thing. But if you write a song for someone, you're truly giving them your heart, you know. And I put my heart and soul in that song. When Sid and I originally recorded it, just the rough recording was at his house. And I had just found out at that time that my sister had stage 4 lung cancer. So when we were recording it, of what we thought all were going to be rough tracks, scratch tracks, what they're called, I was actually crying when I sang it. And now when we went back and looked at it, I'm going to keep those vocals because I could probably go in and sing it better now, but the emotion is there.
Yeah, do you want to lose that
And I don't
heart?
want to lose that,
Yeah.
so we're going to use the original vocals on that.
You've got one more song that you sent to me that is got a very touching story behind it. I'm sure they all have good stories behind them. So when I say a very touching story behind it, I mean a story that touched me. And that is he's riding his Harley in heaven.
Mm-hmm. And that was for my stepson John and Marge's son, who unfortunately passed away on July 3rd of 2016. And he was living in Detroit at the time. And he used to call, I think he called Marge daily. But the last conversation that I had with him, he said, you know, Pat, all I want to do is I just want to get on a bike and I want to ride. And so when we were writing a song in tribute to him, I thought, I'll take that last thing he said to me. And Marge and her ex-husbands, they've always had Harleys, and they've always rode. Mm-hmm. And the kids grew up with it. And so I thought, you know, and I could just picture him riding a bike in heaven. You know, because John was one of these guys that he could make anybody laugh. Nice. You know, he lived a hard life. He lived much of his life in the penitentiary. And but what was amazing was when he came out, it hadn't changed him one bit. He was still just really pleasant. Anybody who would meet John and talk to him for 5 minutes would like John. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And on the same hand, he was very tough and very streetwise.
Right.
But just real fun to be around. He could make you laugh till your side hurt. And I could just picture this big smile on his face while he's riding a Harley across the sky saying, "Hi, Mom." Yeah. And so that's basically what the song's about. And at the end of the song, and the Blood Lescapades record, which is our current record, is a concept album of sorts, but one of the main concepts is the first thing you hear when you put the album on is you'll hear the world turning, and it's the actual world turning. I took the samples from NASA, and NASA recorded the sounds of the sun, the outer earth, the inner earth, and the world actually turning makes a noise. And they recorded all these sounds, and I put them in the album. So the first thing you hear is the world turning, and then you hear a Harley pull up, and then the first song goes. And throughout the album, you'll hear a Harley either ride by in between songs, or it'll stop. And the symbolism of that is that John is listening to the album with you. And then the last song on the album, after the song's over, you hear him ride off, and then you hear the Alleluia in heaven. So throughout the whole album, the idea of that is while you're listening to it, John's listening to it with you.
I've had way too many family and friends pass. But the one that sticks with me the most is my stepfather, John. He basically was the dad that raised me. He was the one that taught me to go fishing for the very first time, camping, driving, shooting. That was all him. And when he passed, that was, to this day, I know when my dad's around. Because I'll feel somebody tug the back of my shirt. And that's when I know Dad's there. And Dad will, and I've never doubted the fact that my family is still watching over me, and I just hope I'm doing them honor. That's it. I hope I'm doing them honor with
That's
my
what
life.
I live for now, is to make my family proud that I've gone on.
Are there any other songs that you guys have done that are meaningful to the rest of you? Wow, we just put dead silence in the room.
I think, personally, Don't Be Like the Blind is probably my favorite St. Madness song of all of them. I mean, just the lyrics that Prophet put into them to fit with the music, and it's just how I've always believed. It's an amazing song.
It's kind of a loaded question.
Well,
as far as like I'm concerned, I like the whole. I really dig the Bloodlustcapades album. I mean, it's like from the beginning to the end. It's a lot of heart and soul went into that album. But if you talk about one song that really speaks to you, that it would have to be off the Carney Metal album, and we did a song called "Drowning on Air."
I agree, Drowning on Air.
And Prophet can tell you more about what the lyrics is, but the music, the lyrics, the emotion that's in that song, I think anybody who's ever lost somebody, or they've passed, at least from this existence, can relate to that song.
My mother, who growing up, first of all, I was born with a really rare blood disease. It's called hypogammaglobulinemia. And the long term is congenital hypogammaglobulinemia. It's the boy in the plastic bubble disease. And he was born with no immune system, so he had to be in a contained environment. Because if he got the flu, it'd be pneumonia and then he'd die.
Right.
So part of my immune system works and part of it doesn't. Unfortunately, it's in my family. My uncle had it, my mom's brother, and he passed away in 1969 when he was 21 because he just kept getting pneumonia till it took him. I'm fortunate because every other Tuesday I go to the hospital and they give me IV treatments, and I've been doing this for 25 years, every 2 weeks, and they give me the IV treatments, and it boosts my immune system, and it's why I'm still sitting here. So growing up, and this is a long way to explain that song, but growing up I was sick all the time, and my poor mother saved my life I don't know how many times, and she always took care of me. And in 2007, February, on St. Valentine's Day of 2007, she was diagnosed with ALS, which was Lou Gehrig's disease.
Right.
So Margie, Josh, and I took care of my mom for almost 2 years. And I watched her wither away to nothing. And my mom was a very proud woman, very strong Catholic, always helping the poor, always helping the sick, giving money to all kinds of charities, and she was my rock. And when she passed away, what's funny is a lot of the lyrics on the new Prophet album I actually wrote right after my mother passed, because I had so many emotions going on. Just the stuff was just pouring out of me. And I knew when I was writing it, I wasn't writing it for St. Madness because it seemed too country or southern rockish.
Something or other.
But I just kept all the lyrics in a book. But Drowning on Air is about how I felt when my mom passed, because when someone that's that important to you passes, it's like you're breathing, but you're not, and you're struggling. And it was like I was drowning on my own breath. And so the song Drowning on Air is how I felt about losing my mother.
I'm down. I was fortunate or unfortunate, depending on what way you want to look at that coin. I got 4 parents, because when my parents divorced, they remarried. I've lost 3 of the 4 now. I'm down to my last one, and I'm scared to death of when I lose him.
Yeah.
When I lost the other 3, I didn't focus on the loss of them. I focused on stepping up and supporting the family and taking care of everybody. So it took me years before I ever got to grieve the loss of any of my parents, because that was when I could finally stop and go, time for you now. They're on their feet again. Time for you now. So I absolutely get that. I still have those moments where it's like, fuck, I've lost. I don't have, when I moved back here to Arizona, because I lived here in Arizona when I was young, and almost 9 years with my mom and stepdad, and then we went back home to Washington. When I just moved back here 2 years ago, when I crossed that state line for the first time, all I could think about was, I miss my dad, because my stepdad, my dad, would have loved to have come back to Arizona. He loved living here in Arizona. He moved back home to Washington to take care of his mother and for the health of my mother.
Yeah.
So he didn't ever want to leave here. So it was hard. It was very
I'm
hard.
in a place where I feel numb, because when they found my disease, I was 8 years old, and the doctors told my parents, "We're sorry, but children born with this don't survive, and you'll be lucky if he makes it to be a teenager." So every time I got sick from then on, my mom, my stepdad, and my sister all worried that,
it was going to be the last time.
and I understood growing up, I'm probably going to be the first to go, and now they're all gone.
Right.
And I feel like an orphan. And I still have my biological dad in Boston, and we have a great relationship. And I have my brother Jim, who's in Pennsylvania. But the three people that took care of me and worried about me all those years, they're all gone, and I'm still here.
I that's one of the jokes between my dad and I, because I come from a sick-humored family. It's all good. We own it. I look at my dad and tell him, "You can't die." And he's, "Why? You know I'm going to." And I said, "No, Dad, I'm not ready to be an orphan yet." And he's like, "You're an adult. Nope, don't care. I'm not ready to be an orphan yet. You can't die." Because that's it. That feeling is exactly what I'm afraid of, is I will suddenly be alone. I will not
I'm
have
numb.
my
I don't
I've
parents.
lost every member of my family but my son. Because if you live long enough, you bury a lot of people.
Right.
And you know what you do? You just move on after each one.
Yeah.
It
Well,
takes
and that's
a bit.
it.
I lost both my parents within 9 months of each other, because when you've been married 50 years, it often happens. That
Right.
way, And boy, I never thought I'd see past that. That was so god awful.
Right.
But you pick up eventually, and you just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And if you believe, someday you'll go up there and they're going to kick your ass for all the things you said wrong and dressing them wrong for their funeral. And all that.
I am sure that there are things to this day that somebody will say, "Let's go do this," or "Why don't you do that?" And I'm like, nope, not going to happen, because my dad will raise out of the grave
Right.
to kick my ass for
Right.
that. Not going to do it. Almost 50 years old, not going to do it.
Still with you.
You
They're-
bet. You bet.
They will be forever.
I'm lucky in that, because the good Catholic that my mom was, I had a relationship with her where I could be honest with her. Like, my parents, when I was 11 years old, they trusted us. We were living in Missouri at the time, but they trusted 10 of us kids to go camping alone in the woods, and we all had pellet and BB guns, and in Missouri, that's no big deal. Country
Right.
folk are like that. And my parents always, I was always straight with my family, and they always knew that once they saw me getting in music, they knew all bets were off. And but so now anything that I do now, I don't think they would be shocked at all. They'd just be like, "Oh, Pat,
So,
when are you going to grow up, son?"
never. They say once you hit 50, you don't have to grow
Our
up anymore.
immaturity keeps
I'm
us
listening.
young.
There you go. So, I'm going to wrap this up, but I have some standard questions that have become my everybody has to answer them kind of questions. So, one of those questions is, what was you guys' worst show?
Wow.
Which one?
Probably when my amp fell off of the top of my cabinet and broke, and we had to quit the set with like 2 or 3 songs left to go at Joe's.
We were at Joe's Grotto.
Yeah, got tangled up in a cord and pulled it right off and hit the floor.
And the show was over.
And
That's it, folks.
right, but and it was amazing because like we're building up to this big crescendo at the end of the set, right? So you can feel it. The crowd's going. It's getting bigger and it's growing. And then as soon as I went back to my amp, I turned around. The cord was around my foot. I go to walk away, and I can collectively hear the whole fucking bar. They all gasped as this head's falling off and onto the ground.
Oh, God.
Tempe Museum was
That was kind of
pretty
bad.
spectacular.
Yeah.
And that was rough too.
Yeah.
The Masquerade.
We've had so many. We've had so many shows like that.
We could have a show
That
devoted to bad shows.
I have a saying that I've said forever, and that is, it's all Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
All of it. And you just roll with the punches, and when something horrible happens, because no matter how hard you rehearse, no matter how hard you save up your money, get good gear, write the best songs you can, plan your show out, plan what you're going to wear, everything's going to be perfect, something is always going to happen and make you look like a tool. And you've got to be able to laugh it off and roll with the punches. And that's part of show business anyway.
Right?
You
Life
know?
happens.
I mean, I'll be on stage singing a song that I probably sang 1,000 times with all the rehearsals and shows, and I'll just go blank lyrically for 2-3 lines.
Liberty.
Liberty, right? And I'll look in the audience like, sing it! Hold the mic out. When act like you're doing it on purpose, right? Okay, guys.
Or sing along with
And
them.
then you
till
hope you
catch
can
back
lip read
up.
somebody. Marge will sometimes run to the front of the stage and she'll like really over enunciate all the words, and I can't see it because I wear glasses normally, so I can't see it. So eventually the lyrics come back around, but you just kind of roll with it and have fun with it.
Well, thank God whoever invented the whammy bar for guitar players. Because when you forget your solo, you just grab it and start jamming on it. It sounds fucking
I've
cool.
done the same thing for come to a part in a bass line and forget where I'm at. How damn cool.
La, la, la.
Oh, that's what you do at practice.
See,
A
the
secret
secrets
reveal.
comes out, yep. So let's flip that coin and let's talk about what was to date, because I'm sure there's going to be more. What was to date the best show?
Oh, wow.
Well, I haven't been with the band for just barely over a year. So far, for me, it was the last night at Joe's Grotto. That was an amazing show.
That was a good show.
That was definitely one of the best. For me, in all my years of playing, the best show was our 20th anniversary at Joe's Grotto.
Absolutely.
It was just a really, really special night. All the bands that were playing with us were friends, and we all knew each other. You could tell when you walked in the venue, and a lot of times you can tell when you first walk in a venue what kind of night it's going to be. And everybody was happy, everybody was partying, everybody was there to have fun. And we played for an hour and a half that night, and we brought back 5 former members of the band. And the show just went off without a hitch. It was just beautiful. It was beautiful.
Almost collapsed the
And-
stage, bringing half the world up there.
When we played Glendale Arena once for Rage in the Cage, which is like the UFC style fighting, and we were the musical guest. And there was just over 8,000 people there. And although that show had some problems, but just being on stage, we had a huge mosh pit breakout, and having 8,000 people looking at you was pretty cool.
To me, I have 2 favorites. The 20th anniversary was probably, it was so magical. But for me personally, too, the very first show that we played when I joined back up at 910 Live, there was a lot of people there, and we were, you have the butterflies again, and and shit's fucking going wrong. I think my amp was fucking up or whatever. I got when at the end of the night. We got through the set and everything sounded, I felt good. It felt great. There was a lot of people there.
They all showed up because we had a brand new lineup.
Right.
And the fans really liked the lineup we had before, which was with Devlin, and we had Ryan Schwartz on guitar, who was Hamish James, and we had Kevin Flores on drums, who was Sir Psycho. And for 4 or 5 years, however long that lineup was together, the crowd really liked that lineup. So now all of a sudden we have a whole brand new band behind Pat. And so a lot of people turned up. There were a lot of St. Madness shirts in that crowd that night. And we were opening for the band Eroticide, which was another long-term band here at 910 Live outside on the outside stage. And it was a great show. I mean, and right away the crowd liked the new lineup. and So, because I was worried too. I didn't know, what they were going to think. But I knew what we sounded like at rehearsal, and I knew what kind of people we were. And I believed it was going to go off good, or else I wouldn't have got up there. But luckily it did. And it did. And it probably helped that I think I lit a joint that night and threw it in the crowd.
Yeah. Plus, we got high as fuck in the green room before going out and playing, too.
God, yeah. Van Halen was a pretty good one too.
We
the
played
show
side
got
stage.
screwed up.
DRI wasn't bad.
Yeah, we opened for DRI twice at UB's and sold out both times.
Face Paint was pretty cool.
And the then bass player for DRI, what's his name?
Harold.
Oh.
Harold. Harold's not with them anymore, but he was with them for many years. What did he say to you after we were done? He went up to you and he goes, "I'm not going to let you one-up me. Where's your face paint?" And the bass player of DRI painted his face like
look
him.
like me.
Yeah.
And played their show in face paint. Now, what an honor is that? DRI are the forefathers, one of the forefathers of...
Right.
When I was in high school, punk people and hard rock metal, they did not interact. They did not like each other. DRI brought the punks and the metal guys together.
He thought I was a fan. He didn't know that I was opening band for his band.
Okay.
That's what he told me.
But he painted his face, and that was a huge honor for us.
Of course.
And a fun show.
Very fun.
We do really well with other punk bands and play a couple of, like the Australian Mountain thing. That's punk bands.
I love punk rock, and I always have.
And it blends so well with metal that I so enjoy those shows.
Any more favorites out
there? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I would say Joe's, the last Joe's show, but actually, since he already said that, I'll go with the last anniversary show.
25th anniversary.
That was fun.
And it was interesting because I usually play all the songs, and we had
3 different drummers, huh? Come up.
And I got to hide behind an amp or something.
Yeah, which
was
cool for me that night.
And watch the other guys play.
I was expecting to have 3 different bass players come, and they couldn't make it. So I got to play with everybody. I didn't have to get off the stage.
And we had, that night, we had 6 different former members come back and play with us.
I think Sid as well. Sid got to play with everybody.
And that's one of the, people will say to me, did it suck having all these years and there's different people on different albums and things? And
why would that suck?
One side of it hurts because when we first started as a band, we thought, it's going to be us forever. We're all going to stay together forever.
Well, you always walk into it right? For that.
And then, eventually someone either gets fired or they quit and they either move on to different music or a different band or they quit music. But for me, the neat thing of it is when we have our anniversaries, these people come back and I get to play on stage with them one last time. And it's been a complete honor.
One more last time?
Yeah. But it's been a complete honor for me to make music with all these great players over the years.
And still have a good relationship with them.
Yep.
Where they're not like, oh, you're wanting to come play your show? No, fuck you.
And I'm sure just like all the greats, there will be one more last time.
Yeah. I don't have any former members where if I saw them in a store that I wouldn't just walk right up to and shake their hand or give them a hug or.
Right.
I don't have that kind of animosity between anybody. And you know, some of the rules we have in the band are like, if two members start not liking each other, you know, go out in the alley and have a big
figure it out.
argument or go have your fight and then come back in here and go to work.
Right.
Because the music has to mean more. If you're serious about your music, if you're an original artist and you're making albums and if you have a lineup of people where it's magic musically, you got to find a way to put that first. And your little problems, put them aside, you know, because if you give up that band and you say, I hate that guy, fuck that band, and then you leave and you end up in another band, you're totally unhappy because it doesn't have that same magic.
Right.
And like, people will be here for years and then rehearsing, you know, 3 nights a week can tire you out, right? So they leave St. Madness and they think, all right, I'm going to go, you know, do my own thing, do better. And then they end up in a band that rehearses once a week, maybe. And then they realize, because I've had them come back to me and say, man, hindsight's 20/20, because I was complaining when I was there, but we were working. We were always busy. We always had something going on. And I walked away from it, and I've been 3 different bands now, and none of them want to do much, and it's a struggle, you know.
Right.
I put the music first here. We make good music. I'm proud of every single one of our albums. I don't have one album where I go, I don't really listen to that one. I listen to all of them, and I accept that when those recordings were made, we all did the best we could. I don't listen to it and go, oh, I fucked up there, and yeah, we should have done that there and that there, and then it makes it so you don't even want to hear your own album. I don't feel that way. I listen to it, and I still remember the stuff I could have done better, but I accept that when we made that recording, we did the best we could.
Right. All right, so next question. I'll make it an easier one. Pinnacle venue. What venue would you still aspire to play that you would be like, I've made it to the absolute top?
Radio City Musical.
Madison Square Garden.
Same place.
Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden.
That would be the one that, I would want to play there, you know.
Well,
Everywhere
Wembley-
here, we
Wembley'd
played
be
Desert
pretty
Sky
great.
Pavilion,
Right.
which is what
I'd like to play
Oxford
at Red
Pavilion.
Rocks.
Wembley would be great.
Wembley would be okay.
We've got to play
Red
almost
Rocks would be
all the
fun.
major
Yeah.
venues here.
As
We
many
played.
shows have I seen there.
We played the Marquee Theater. We played Desert Sky Pavilion. We played Glendale Arena, which is jobbing.com, or I don't know what they call it. They changed the name so many times.
We've got one back home that does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here in Arizona, we haven't played every big place, but we've played almost every one that we've ever wanted to.
Scottsdale
We've
venue.
got to. But if you were going to say now, in the local underground scene type venues, what is like your favorite venues ever? My 3 are gone.
Right.
And that's the Mason Jar, and that's 910 Live Outside, and that's Joe's Grotto.
Yep.
Because Joe's Grotto was more than just a bar. It was a concert venue.
Right.
And when the fans went there, you could get real close to the stage, but the stage was this high, and you felt more like you're watching a concert than you're just playing a club.
Well, and that was Joe's was my favorite place to take video because I could get some of the best video of the bands from that stage. It was the perfect height. And I could walk along the front of it and get those shots because I like to make sure I'm getting every member of the band. Every member gets that 3 seconds of fame in that video. That's important to me because it's not, no band is about any one member. Sorry,
No.
got to say, no band is
He's
about any.
always
I
very
100%
good about
It
agree.
He
takes
always
the
gives credit.
entire band.
What?
So all of them should
It's
be
not
getting
all about the
It's not
guitar.
about me.
By the way,
No.
you
If
forgot
it wasn't
shit.
for
Let's
bass
call them.
players, you would all suck.
Great
Honey,
singers.
you are a shiny pebble on the beach, just like all the others.
Now,
No, I'm not.
I want to say, because you brought that up about filming video and pictures. I'm going to just give an opinion out here. People can do with it what they want. If you love a band and you're going to their show, understand that more people are looking at your pictures and your video than just people in your hometown. Because of the internet, the whole world's watching at times. If you love that band, try to make them look good in your pictures. And what I mean by that is, if your band's playing in front of an empty floor, don't take a lot of pictures of that empty floor, because the only thing you're doing is showing the rest of the world that nobody cares enough to go see that band. If it's an empty floor, take close-up shots of the band members. If there's a lot of crowd, take a lot of shots of the crowd and the band, because that shows the rest of the world, hey, these guys draw a crowd, and that's a badass concert.
You bet.
But so many people, because everybody has a phone now, they'll say, I love this band, and they'll go watch them, and they'll take these god-awful pictures of a band on stage with nobody. And it doesn't help their band that they like.
Girlfriend.
It hurts it.
Shows that they're the only one that likes the band.
Well, and that was a lesson I had to learn taking the videos, is how close or far from the stage do I need to be? I want to be right up close because I want those closer shots. I want people to actually see the band. But then Joe's Grotto, the closing of Joe's Grotto, Oddity Paradox was in the back on the small stage. And I had no choice to get those farther back pictures.
It was a great crowd.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was. And I went back and looked at those videos, and I'm like, shit.
That shows the excitement.
There's so much more life
amazing.
in the video.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's absolutely changed my perspective of when I'm taking videos.
Well, it's a numbers game, right? So everybody out there wants to play in front of a crowd. And the more you take pictures of a band and show them playing in front of nobody, I think in a way it kind of hurts the band.
Well,
Right.
what
More
venue
than it
wants
helps.
to book them? If they go to check and see how they're doing, you don't
Nope.
want to book that.
Right.
That isn't making you money at the bar.
Right.
You know?
So let's go to my favorite question before we wrap up for the night. This is the question that everybody glares at me over, and I've gotten used to it, and I'm kind of okay with it. If you guys could share the stage, share a show bill with any band, live or dead, and that's the part that makes everybody groan and roll their eyes at me, because I have just opened the door so largely. Who would you share the stage, the show bill with? Who would that be?
Pretty easy for me. It'd be Iron Maiden.
I would say Pantera.
I would say Ozzy in the Randy years, Blizzard of Oz tour.
Pantera.
Black Sabbath.
It's really funny because my three are Black Sabbath, Pantera, and Iron Maiden. That's the truth.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That shows one of the reasons, and I'm sure there's many, but one of the reasons y'all mesh together so well is you have such a similarity in preferred bands that you listen to.
Absolutely.
Sure, they're huge influences on our music.
They're huge influences on a lot of people's
course.
music, whether they want to own it or not.
Tony Iommi is probably the most influential guitarist of all.
Well, if there's a metal
times.
riff out there, Tony Iommi's already played it.
Right.
Because
And probably wrote it.
what's interesting about
Yeah.
that is, I know we're getting ready to wrap it up, but I like watching these things on YouTube where there'll be people that are from a totally different liking genre of music, and they'll play metal like for the first time. They may be like into rap or country or whatever, but they'll get together, they'll play a song, and then they'll talk about the song, and like, whoa, how do you feel about it? And one of the things that I noticed, this couple that I was watching, and I started to follow him, I watched 4 or 5 of their videos, he made the point from never hearing metal before that Tony Iommi riffs are in all these bands that he's heard, like, since he started listening to metal, because he didn't hear Black Sabbath first, he heard all the other bands. And he says, my God, this guy was a innovator of the time. And I agree with him.
They were the godfathers of metal, no doubt. And they started as a blues band when they were Earth. Because in England there was an explosion at the time where all the bands liked the Chicago blues and all that. And that's why Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Black Sabbath, probably Judas Priest at some point.
Deep Purple.
They all had that blues influence in them. And but Black Sabbath, they were the very first really heavy, scary band. And they said they were so scary they actually scared themselves at times, because they had only planned on taking it so far, but the record company saw that it was getting attention. So the record company at the time took it even further. And then the band was kind of scared about it. They're like, oh my God, now we're really these scary guys,
You guys get attributed to that a bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
It's
listen,
part of metal.
We're what you would call a shock
Satan's
metal
and everything.
band, and you can't shock people if you're not scary on some point or you're not shocking on some point. Then
I don't
you're
know, a
really,
three-piece suit's kind of scary on occasion.
it can be.
I have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we all wore them, we'd be dressed to kill.
Yeah.
You'd be Metallica.
So, before we wrap this up, where's your next show? When's your next show?
April, we're playing with the Desert Vikings in Glendale at the Starlight Lounge. And that's, is that April?
24th.
April 24th. And we're playing at Krusty Palms on Friday, April 17th.
17th.
And then we're playing a benefit for veterans in Sierra Vista on June 19th. Is that right?
I was just going to look it
I
up.
think it's June 19th. And that one has
if
like
it's
20
not
bands.
canceled by the coronavirus, people.
Right.
Right,
If
if they're
any
not
of
all
them go
canceled.
forward.
But that one has at least 20 bands on it.
Nice.
And yeah, those are the only 3 shows we have booked right now at this time. Plus, like I said, we're putting the finishing touches on the Prophet and the Cowboys of Apocalypse record. And on the side, we've been learning a bunch of new covers and stuff. And we like to play covers here and there because they're usually by bands or artists that influence us or that are like mentors. And it's our way of giving tribute.
Absolutely. So, where can people stalk Saint Madness?
Spotify, Bandcamp, Reverb Nation, iTunes.
StMadness.com.
YouTube. StMadness.com. If you want to order our records, just write one of us online, and we'll make sure
You
that...
really can reach him on Facebook Messenger, I know, because I do.
Yeah. We're not hard to find.
We don't hide.
Yeah.
No
If you
dick
type
pics.
it in into Google, you get thousands of returns. So.
Yeah. So, no, we're out there everywhere, and we're very easy to talk to. So
Absolutely. So, April 17th, Krusty Palms.
Oh,
April
sorry.
24th.
24th at Starlight. And then the next one
I think it's
was...
June
I've
19th.
got it right here. Sorry, I got diverted. Somebody wrote us. Okay. It starts with April 17th through the 19th, Krusty Palms,
That's
which
a
is in
festival.
the Estrella Mountains. That's a festival, punk festival. Starlight Lounge is April 24th, which is a Saturday. The benefit for veterans is Sierra Vista the weekend of June 26th through June 28th.
Well, I was off on
Play
that.
the 26th.
Glad we didn't show up on the 19th.
All right. So
And then we got a date for Halloween, but it's coming together.
Yeah, we're
All
playing
right.
Sabra is doing a Halloween show, and we're going to play her show,
Nice.
but that's in October.
But we'll probably all be dead by the coronavirus by then.
If we don't
would
have
you
the
quit
corona
putting
cough.
that out there to the universe? You
And
know
listen,
the universe
No,
listens.
you're going to be
Listen,
dead from
uh,
lack
Did
of
that
shit
interview
paper
a
by
week
the time
ago.
that...
We
Well,
laughed our way through the corona
If
cough.
anybody out there would like a St. Madness album, we need 3 rolls of toilet paper per album.
And some hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for inviting me into your studio for this. This has been
And
a
happy
great...
birthday!
Thank
It's her
you.
birthday!
Thank you, guys. This has been a great sit down, and I really appreciate you taking the time with me. Local Beat, thank you for all the great times, and I hope to have many more with you guys, and have a great night.
Yeah.